Most webinars fail before the presentation even starts, and it's because the system around it was never built correctly. What happens before you go live, during the presentation, and in the sales window after the webinar, most coaches only focus on one of these three. They spend weeks building slides, they rehearse the pitch, then they go live, and the results come in below their expectations, and they don't understand why. The reason is almost always in the execution and in the structure. There are three specific stages inside a webinar funnel. If any of these three stages is weak, it doesn't matter how good your presentation is, the sales and revenue just won't be there. In this video, I'm going to walk you through all three stages, what breaks inside of each one, and what it looks like when it's built correctly. You will understand exactly what separates webinars that underperform and the ones that scale your business past $250K per month. Let's get into it. Most coaches treat a webinar like a standalone event. They show up, present, pitch, and then they wait for sales to come in. That's not the best way to scale to $250K per month with webinars. The webinar presentation is only one piece of the conversion system. The stages before it and after it determine what actually converts. And when those stages are missing, the webinar itself cannot carry the full weight. There are three specific stages where this system breaks down: before, during, and in the sales window after the webinar ends. And we're going to go through all three. The first stage is everything that happens before you go live. Most coaches skip or completely mess up this stage entirely. It kills their attendance and their show up rate before the webinar even starts. Everything starts with the registration page. Most registration pages are a headline, a form, and a button, and that is not enough to make your ideal prospect feel like they cannot miss this. A high converting registration page pre-sells the webinar before they register. The headline leads with a specific outcome that your audience actually wants. The copy below it handles the objections that stop them from signing up. After someone registers, most coaches send them to a blank confirmation page. You registered, see you there, and that's it. Then that's one of the biggest missed opportunities in the entire funnel. The confirmation page is where you place an indoctrination video, a short video that reinforces their decision to register and begin shifting beliefs immediately. By the time they show up live, they've already warmed up to your offer. Between the registration and the live event, you also need a belief shifting sequence, not just reminder emails, content that actually moves them towards a buying decision. The selling begins here before the webinar presentation even goes live. Most pre-webinar show up sequences are 3 reminder emails and the calendar link. That sequence does absolutely nothing to build anticipation or warm up the audience to buy. A properly built show up sequence increases both the attendance rate and the conversion rate. Now, the second stage is the webinar presentation itself. Most coaches who build their own webinar make the same structural mistakes, and those mistakes are what keeps their conversion rates low. The most common mistake is opening with teaching, frameworks, strategies, and valid delivery right from the first slide. This feels generous, but it's the wrong starting point if you actually want to convert your audience. Before your audience can say yes to your offer, they need to hold specific beliefs about why their current situation exists and why your solution is the right answer. Your presentation exists to install those beliefs before the pitch ever happens. If you open with teaching, you're skipping the belief installation entirely. Your audience learns something valuable and then gets pitched with no foundation built. The pitch lands cold because the beliefs required to say yes were never installed. You need to open the webinar by naming the exact painful situation your audience is stuck in, the specific problem that they have not been able to solve on their own, and when someone hears that situation described precisely, they're going to pay attention. Then you reframe why that problem continues to exist, not because they lack effort or the ability to fix the problem, but because they have been operating on false limiting beliefs. That reframe is what makes your offer feel like the only logical next step. You're presenting the answer to a problem they now understand in a completely different way, and that's what changes how the pitch lands. The next structural mistake is building an offer as a single reveal at the end. One price, one pitch, one moment where the audience decides yes or no. That structure puts enormous pressure on a single moment that hasn't been set up correctly. A correctly built offer is introduced piece by piece throughout the entire presentation. Each component gets presented as the direct solution to a specific problem you just explained. By the time you state the price, they've already said yes to each piece individually. The third structural mistake is saving objection handling for the Q&A. Most coaches answer questions at the end and they call that objection handling, but by that point their audience has already made their decision. Objection handling belongs inside every story, reframe, and teaching point in the presentation. Every limiting belief your audience holds gets addressed before it has the chance to block the sale. The Q&A section is just the final cleanup, not where objections are mainly handled. When the presentation is structured correctly, your audience reaches the pitch already completely sold. The beliefs are installed, the offer has been built in front of them piece by piece. The pitch is a confirmation, not a persuasion attempt. Now, the third and final stage is everything that happens after the webinar. The most neglected stage in the entire funnel. This is where a significant portion of your revenue either gets captured or permanently lost. The 48 to 72 hours after live webinar is the highest intent window in the funnel. Your audience just watched the full presentation and the offer is top of mind. Most coaches don't take advantage of this window and they let that intent disappear. A post-webinar sales window runs on a hard deadline with real consequence for waiting. Value and urgency emails go out at specific intervals during that window. Without a deadline, there's no reason for your audience to act now. The majority of people who register for the webinar will not attend live. That doesn't mean that they're not interested or that you can't convert them. You need a no-show sequence built specifically to bring them back into the funnel. That sequence delivers the replay with the closing deadline attached. It reestablishes the offer and it gives non-attendees a chance to act before the window closes. Some of your best customers won't watch a single minute of the live webinar. After the sales window closes, there are still warm leads who considered the offer but didn't buy. They watched the presentation, they know who you are, and they were very close to converting. Letting that audience go cold without retargeting them is leaving money on the table. Retargeting keeps you visible to an audience that has already demonstrated buying intent. Warm audiences convert at a significantly higher rate than cold traffic for a fraction of the cost. And that is one of the simplest, highest return moves in the entire system. Now, I just covered the 3 stages of the webinar funnel. What happens before the webinar goes live, during the presentation, and the sales window after the webinar ends. Now it's time for me to show you what it looks like when it's actually executed correctly and what you can expect from a webinar that is actually running smoothly and is running how it's supposed to be running. When all 3 stages are built correctly, the webinar stops being just an event. It becomes a conversion system that runs consistently and compounds over time. That is what separates the webinars doing $250K a month from the ones that underperform. Before the webinar, you have a registration page that pre-sells attendance, a belief shifting sequence running between the registration and the live event. That show up sequence builds anticipation and starts selling before you go live. The presentation opens on pain and installs the beliefs required to buy before teaching anything. The offer gets built piece by piece so that the pitch lands when the audience is already sold. Objections are handled throughout and the Q&A section closes whatever gaps remain. After the webinar, a structured sales window runs with a hard deadline. Non-attendees get a replay with nurturing and urgency to drive them toward the offer. Warm leads who didn't convert get retargeted and enter a follow-up sequence. Every stage is converting a different segment of your audience. Live attendees, non-attendees, warm leads who didn't buy are all being hit. Nothing gets left on the table and no segment of your audience goes untouched. This is the system that coaches and info businesses are using to scale past $250K a month, not by building a better offer, having a bigger audience, or having larger ad budgets. It's by having a conversion system that is built correctly across these 3 stages. If you want to see what this looks like built for your coaching and info business, the link to book a call is in the description below. We will look at your current setup and build the entire system for you from start to finish. Like I said, if you're interested in building this webinar funnel for your coaching and info business, go ahead and book a call with the link below. And one other thing that I would like to say is that building out webinar funnels is very complex and it's very time intensive. I do have virtual assistants, I have AI to help me build this out for you, but I still can only take a certain amount of coaches each month because I need to pay attention to, your specific offer, your market, your niche, and your situation in order to make sure that this webinar funnel actually performs. So if you want to, talk about implementing this funnel into your business and you want to work with me, go ahead and book a call. I have limited spots each month and I can only work with a certain amount of coaches. So make sure that you book a call. We can talk about how to implement this and how this will look for your coaching business. So go ahead and book a call and let's talk more.